Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to my motherland of Scotland once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. Now we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel quite a few times before. These guys are one of my most reviewed Scottish breweries here on the channel, and they are very well known and very well respected these days, particularly when it comes to the New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA category. But they do a number of other beers as well. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I've had from this brewery many times before. It's a style that I know they can do very well, and this one is also one of their latest releases. And it's got a little bit of a twist to it that I don't think I've had from this brewery previously. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this one's going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Scotland like I said. We are going to go to the city of Glasgow and Yoker to be precise. So that means we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Overtone Brewing Company. This one is called Blossom. It comes in at 8% ABV. It's a New England hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and it also happens to have a little bit of honey added into it. So yeah, that should be pretty interesting. I think my last Overtone review on the channel was maybe about, 4 or 5 months ago, something like that. I think it was March or February perhaps. So yeah, I managed to pick up a few fresh Overtone beers when I was back in the motherland a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, these will be in a pretty damn good condition. But yeah, really cool to return to these guys. Let's crack on then and see what Blossom is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Overtone Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist along with a number of other things. That's going to be added to quite regularly over the next little while because I brought a good bunch of stuff back with me. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to brewery notes then and tell you a wee bit about Overtone Brewing once again then. So, Overtone Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in the city of Glasgow, and the company was founded back in 2017 by Bo Wei Wang, who is originally from Beijing in China. So he'd been a home brewer for a number of years prior to founding the brewery, and he named the project Overtone after his love of techno music. So in the early days, Bo Wei hired Dan Miller, who's from New Hampshire in New England in the northeastern US, to come in as his head brewer, and he'd previously worked as a head chef, but he'd also been a brewer in England, New York, and he'd worked previously in Scotland for 6 Degrees North, who do some very nice Belgian style beers incidentally, so make sure you check them out. They also had a brewer for a period of time called Martin Conahan. He'd worked in the beer scene in New Zealand, and he was taking part of the brewing and doing other things around the brewery too. And these days, Charlie Irving is also involved in the brewing, and he comes from a background of home brewing, and he previously worked for another local brewery in Glasgow too. But the brewery itself can be found in the New Albion Industrial Estate in the Yoker area near Renfrew and Clydebank, and they began their operations there in 2018. But they don't have a fixed range as such, and they're always brewing different beers, but they are the first brewery in Scotland who really focused on the New England hazy IPAs. They were the one that really kind of pushed this style in the country. But over the years they've continued to expand the brewery's infrastructure, and they also now have a tap room in the Dongcheng area of Beijing, which is something I do need to go and check out at some stage, but I'm hopeful that they'll open up a tap room in Glasgow at some stage. That would be pretty cool. But as of August 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced just over 335 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. The majority of those are like hazy IPAs, pale ales, double IPAs, these kind of of things. But you do get some kind of fruited sours. There's a fair few imperial stouts in there, and every so often you'll get like a West Coast IPA or a black IPA. My favourite beer that I've ever had from these guys, I think, was the Rwandan Coffee IPA, the very first one that I reviewed from these guys. But maybe because it was the first one, that was the reason that it kind of stuck in the memory. But yeah, these guys do some very good stuff, and if you like a good hazy IPA, Overtone Brewing Company are the Scottish brewer that you want to pick for that. But yeah, that is everything that I can really tell you about Overtone Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the beer itself. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open up. There you can see it's got that typical Overtone sort of roundel on the front. This is a 440ml can, incidentally, plain silver top on it there, and yeah, you can see you'll always get this. Oh, have I got that the wrong way around? There you go. You'll always get this on the side of the can too, and it tells you a wee bit about the beer over here. So this one says on the side here, Blossom, like an audio emphasizer, or no, it says emphasizer. This is the high ABV collection. So like an audio emphasizer bringing frequencies to the surface, this collection elevates beer for a louder, dynamic experience with bold, vibrant notes and a smooth, balanced finish. So yeah, this obviously they're kind of separating their beers into series now, which I think is the first time, I've noticed that on their cans. But yeah, this one is a honey double IPA. So yeah, this one's hopped with Columbus and Nelson Sauvin in the pellet form and the hop keef form actually, so should be really nice. But yeah, we know both of these hops quite well. Columbus is an American hop, 14% alpha acid if I remember correctly, and it gives you a very kind of spicy floral type note, whereas Nelson Sauvin is a New Zealand hop, 16% alpha acid, and it's going to give you that very distinctive white, green, grapey, gooseberry sort of note. And we've got a wee bit of honey in here too, so that should make this one a wee bit sweeter. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. I'm very curious about this. Oh, there we go. So let's do it. Okay, I think that'll do for the moment to have a wee look at the colour of this one. I think I've poured just about half of the beer into the glass, but yeah, this will allow us to look at the colour nicely and to get a good head on the beer later. But I have to say, it looks absolutely lovely, this one. So you can see, with half of the beer, we've got about a half finger of a frothy, I would say slightly cream ivory coloured head there. It's lovely and foamy on the top, and you can just see those smaller bubbles just underneath it there. Look at that, that's lovely. But yeah, in terms of colour, this one's got a lovely, very kind of deep mango juice colour to it. I always love comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices, because that really is just what their appearance reminds me of. But a very, very rich colour, this one. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you really don't often have to care about that when it comes to the IPA category at all. But yeah, the level of haze in this one for an 8%er as well, I think this is actually pretty soupy and gloopy. So the level of haze in these New England IPAs depends usually on oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use, but that can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. But yeah, this one looks absolutely great. Not much in the way of visible carbonation, and you can see the head has just faded away to be a sort of thinner, more foamy layer at the moment, but it looks absolutely beautiful with this one. Nothing really unusual about its appearance when you consider what style this one is, and I wonder if part of the depth of the colour in this is a little bit to do with the honey. Maybe that's what's giving it such a pardon me, a rich colour. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what it gives us. I don't think we need to say anything more about the appearance. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, that's pretty damn nice. It's pretty intense in its green component as well. And you can smell, yeah, the Columbus is definitely doing yeah, the Columbus is definitely doing its thing in there. Yeah, lovely smelling beer that. I always love when you get fresh Overtone. It's very difficult to beat, in all honesty. So yeah, as I've often said, when it comes to New England IPAs, there's 6 elements to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of these beers. You've got the farmhousey, yeasty type character, and the rye lean and grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a little bit more common in New England brewed New England IPAs. But then yeah, you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things too. And this one to me smells like it's got quite a little bit of wheaty character, oatiness, and of course the honey is giving it that sweeter edge as well. So it's giving you a bit of everything. But yeah, the backbone of this beer is absolutely like a fresh white bready bread crust. You get that right away in this one. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's a little touch of woody character, as you very often get. Cracker. I'm getting a little bit of like a sweet wholemeal brown bread in this one. But again, not too much, but lots of like fluffy, fresh, airy white bread in there. A more dense, wheaty white bread as well. And at the back of the nose you can get a little bit of bitiness out of the wheat, that's for sure. So you can feel that in there. But yeah, there's lots of oatiness to this one, that's for sure. So you can smell that lovely big kind of creamy, silky oaty character in there. And then yeah, you've got the sweetness out of this one. There's a wee bit of like the Werther's original butter candy butterscotch in there, but you can definitely feel that more kind of crisp sort of honey aroma coming out of this one. You can certainly smell that. And there's a good wee bit of, yeah, there's a good little bit of, I would say, how would you say that? Yeah, there's a good little bit of, there's a wee bit of like that McVitie's digestive biscuity type note coming out of this beer too, so you certainly get that in there. But yeah, the malty side of this one is really nice. At the back of the nose, you start to get the yeasty side of things. Yeah, you start to get that yeasty side of things. So, for me, the yeasty side of this beer, it's quite, how would you say? Yeah, the yeasty side of things for me, it's got a little bit of brown bread to it, but mostly like again, fluffy, fresh, but quite dense white bread. And then yeah, it's got a wee bit of like a kind of crackery character to it as well. So yeah, the yeasty side of this one's pretty nice too. But yeah, I think the malty character is a bit more prominent in this one, a bit more dense if you like. So yeah, it's interesting. And as I say, the more that I smell this one, the more oatiness I get out of it. But in New England IPAs, oats can usually be a very good rough indicator of how fresh your beer is. Essentially, the fresher the beer is, the creamier the oats are going to be, the drier they are, the older it's going to be. But again, that's a very rough indicator. But let's focus on the hoppy side of things with this one then. So the green component in this, like I said, is quite interesting because you've got the hop keef in there from Nelson Sauvin, but you still have quite a pungent green component in the beer. So one thing to remember with IPAs is that there's 3 ways to hop these. You can do early addition hopping, which takes place in the first hour of the wort boil, and that gives you a very deep dank green component, and that's responsible for most of your bitterness. There is late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. That gives you a little bit of it gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour, and will give you a very bright green component. Then dry hopping takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma. So yeah, the way that this one, you know, New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs will use all 3 kinds of hopping. This one you can smell a mix of, yeah, you can smell a little bit of mix here. I think there is some early addition hopping going on, but mainly late addition and dry hopping. But the other thing is, if you use hop oil products like Sub Keef, it's going to really smoothen out your green component, and you can certainly detect that going on here. Yeah, the aroma of this one, the green component, there's a little bit of earthiness in there. Lovely sort of, yeah, there's a wee bit of earthiness in there. Some floral aromaticity. yeah, lovely earthiness, a little bit of floral aromaticity. And you can smell that that's very smooth though, and you've got a lovely kind of grassiness in there, and it's the smoothness of the grassiness that really kind of gives away the fact that there's that sort of hop oil product in here. But yeah, the green component's kind of giving you everything that you would expect, apart from the fact that the Columbus is often very, very spicy, so maybe we'll get more of that in the flavour than the aroma. But yeah, the green component in this one for me, it's all about the gooseberry, yeah? Nelson Sauvin is always going to give you that big white, green, grapey gooseberry sort of thing, and it's so obvious in this one. So yeah, big white, green, grapey gooseberry character coming out of this one. There's maybe a wee bit of a more zesty lime or something in there, but yeah, the way that all of this kind of pieces together, I think, is really, really nice in this one. So yeah, really nice stuff actually. I like how that goes together in this one. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beers before you get stuck into them. And I have to say, this one smells absolutely great, but I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one now and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Blossom, a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA with a little bit of honey in it, from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker in Glasgow, back in the motherland of Scotland. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh. Yeah, that is very, very nice. I'm going to say straight away, just very big, smooth, creamy New England IPA. This, it drinks so nicely, and the honey in this one is just quite subtle. It comes out into the aftertaste and just kind of shows its head, kind of rears its head a little bit. I really like that in this one. They've done a really, really nice job of this beer, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like it. So first impression is, it does give you that little bit of extra kind of bitterness and spiciness that you would expect if there's Columbus involved. Big oaty, it's a lot more oaty than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be more wheaty in a way. I thought there would be a little bit more of a wheaty presence to this one, but yeah, very oaty, creamy, smooth IPA this, that's for sure. So yeah, let's have a wee look at this one. Oh yeah, so yeah, let's have a wee look at the, let's just break this one down then and describe it for you more in depth as we always do. We'll go to the middle third of your palate first. So the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. That is the backbone of your beer. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you do get just a little touch of woodiness that comes out into the aftertaste. I always get that. But yeah, above that you've got a layer of sort of cracker, Jacob's cream cracker. And then the next layer up for me, it's kind of got a more wholemeal, sort of brown bready layer, which has a wee bit of sweetness to it, but it does give you a wee bit of kind of graininess that lingers into the aftertaste. Above that, you've got the kind of the fresh, fluffy white bready note from the barley malt. So yeah, you've got that fresh, fluffy white bready note from the barley malt in there. And then on top of that, you get the more dense, wheaty, white bready character coming out of the beer. So yeah, that more dense, wheaty white bready note is in there, and it's actually very, very smooth wheat in this one. It does have a little touch of bitiness further back on the palate. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So this beer does actually show you a little bit of, it does show a little touch of bitiness from the wheat, but overall it's very, very smooth. But then above that, you've got the lovely oaty notes, and if you go down the middle line of your palate, it's lovely, thick and oaty and creamy, and as you move out toward the edges of your palate there, it's just got that little bit of oaty dryness as well. So yeah, there's just, well, it's just a tiny little bit of oaty dryness which is just creeping out of it. But yeah, these beers, I will say, are very, very fresh. When I bought them, I think they'd only been delivered like 2 or 3 days ago to the shop. So yeah, these are just a couple of weeks old, so in very good condition at the moment. On top of the oaty part of this beer, you've got a kind of circle in the middle of your palate where the sweeter side comes out of the beer. So in the very core, you've got that little circle there where the sweetness is kind of more concentrated, so you've got that more kind of boozy, you've got that more sort of boozy side to it. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch in there. Then it's surrounded by a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's. No, it's more, I think more the honey is kind of the next layer up, and then at the very edge of that you've just got a wee touch of McVitie's Digestive Biscuit. So at its core, yeah, Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch, the honey kind of sits underneath that, and I think the honey lingers into the aftertaste. It's quite a light, quite sweet honey, if that makes sense. Sometimes they can have a little bit of heather and stuff through them, and it gives them a wee touch of spice. But yeah, then you've got the biscuity note in there. So yeah, I think the sweetness, the actual honey sweetness in this beer, which is what kind of distinguishes it from some of the other Overtone ones, that takes a little bit of time to just kind of show its face, if you like, but it is there for sure. So yeah, middle third of your palate in this beer is really nice. Let's go to the back third of your palate then. As I've often said, the back third of your palate is very similar to the middle third of your palate in terms of flavours, but it will kind of, you know, you will just get them at different intensities, if you like. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, sorry, brain is not working, you get that little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the brown bread in the base, the fluffy white bread from the barley malt in the middle, and the more dense wheaty character on top. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate is the base of the back third of your palate is that lovely fresh white bready bread crust. There is the Jacob's cream cracker kind of sitting on top of that. Then yeah, the brown bread, the wholemeal brown bready layer feels a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. You can say the same about the white bready barley malt character that sits above that, and then yeah, you've got the wheaty white bready character that sits on top of that, which does have a wee bit of bitiness to it. Then you've got all the yeasty notes sitting above that. So let's look at the yeasty character in the beer. So yeah, the brown bready character in this one, sorry, the yeasty character in this one, it has a kind of brown bread at its core, but it's quite a smooth brown bread. I wouldn't call it sweet, but yeah, quite a smooth brown bread. It's surrounded by a more, dense brown bread at its core, a kind of fluffier brown bread around the edge, and then yeah, a wee bit of kind of bread crusty character in there, and that does linger into the aftertaste too. So yeah, for me the yeasty character is a little bit more brown bready, and you can certainly feel on the back third of your palate the flavour of this one is taller. Then as you move further into the middle third of your palate, you can just feel that it kind of squashes down that little bit and pushes together. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, in this one is really, really quite nice. So let's have a wee look at the hoppy side of things with this one then. So yeah, hoppy side of this beer for me, like I said earlier, because it's got that hop keef in there, it's very, very smooth. In the back corners of your palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. Then as you move further forward, there's a little bit of almost woodiness, and you can feel into the aftertaste, you do get a little bit of that spiciness that you expect of the Columbus in there. But yeah, your green component overall is very, very smooth, and as you reach the front kind of corners of your palate, you do get a little bit of that floral aromaticity, but round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. But yeah, very smooth green component in this one. So yeah, I really like that too. Yeah, I like that. It's the green component in this one fits the kind of creamy, smooth flavour that this beer has. But let's look at the front third of your palate then. So yeah, the border region between front and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. The brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty character on top. The base of that front third of your palate is absolutely like a fresh white bready character. You've got fresh white bready bread crust, you've got the cracker on top of that, the brown bread, the white bread, the wheat character, and then the smoother oats, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll the way out of the beer. So let's look at the fruity side of things then. So yeah, fruity side of the beer for me, I would say, yeah, the fruity side of the beer for me, it's, you know, if you know Nelson Sauvin, it's all about that. The whole thing, you've got that lovely big oily layer of like white, green grape, gooseberry on it, and as you reach the very kind of front tip of your tongue, it's got, yeah, as you reach the very kind of front tip of your tongue, it's got a bit more of a, yeah, it's got a little bit more of a kind of limey sort of note behind it as well. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think is really, really nice in that sense. The fruity character, it's pretty straightforward in this one. As I say, if you know Nelson Sauvin, it's all about that white, green, grapey gooseberry, and yeah, there's just a little touch of a limey note in this one behind the very tip of your tongue where you get all the grassy esters kind of interacting. But yeah, I like how this goes together. It gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour section of this video. Let's just round off with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel then. So, for me, come to think of it, this beer overall, when I think about it as a New England IPA, it's actually quite an oily, smooth and kind of slick New England IPA. Which I wasn't quite expecting, to be honest with you. But yeah, the more, I think I said it was very smooth and creamy at the beginning, but the more I drink of it, the more I think it's quite oily and slick. But yeah, like the kind of oily slickness that this one has is really nice. I would describe this beer as being kind of top end to mid bodied, but it is very drinkable, and it has that kind of Scottish water cleanliness to it, if we can call it that. So yeah, quite clean, but a nice slick oily character to it, I have to say. And yeah, nice slick oily character to it. And you also have a little bit of yeah, you've definitely got a wee bit of dryness to it into the aftertaste, but yeah, top end and mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, kind of oily, slick mouthfeel. IBU in this one, I think this is maybe 30, 40 at the absolute most. You do get a wee bit of that Columbus spiciness into the aftertaste. The maltiness, as we said, it's a little bit drier underneath, smoother in the middle, and kind of creamy and slightly sweet on top. And then, yeah, you've got that nice oily, fruity character to it. So, yeah, the way that it all pieces together, I think, is very, very nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this beer. Very, very impressed with this one. I chose this first because this was the lowest ABV of the 3 overtones that I brought back. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed with this. I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, I think we can leave it there. This one was the Blossom, a New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, with a little bit of honey added into it from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker in Glasgow, in my motherland of Scotland. Always a pleasure to return to these guys. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Overtone Brewing as well, and we will definitely return to these guys again at some point in the fairly near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Overtone Brewing social media, and I'll see you later. Ciao just now.